So today I'm standing here as an African woman in photography. I'm here to talk about myself as an African woman in photography, but also to talk about two other African women photographers whom I greatly admire. Two photographers who talk about conflict in their work. And it's very interesting for me to talk about their different perspective on how they view conflict, or how they want the audience to look at conflict from Africa. Especially as we all know that when we talk about conflict, the way the formal media depicts it, it's kind of Halloween, can we say that? About me, I'm just going to read through so that I don't, make it long. As one of the few practicing female photographers, a cultural worker and an artist from the marginalized Southern Anglophone Cameroon, my experience and practice invites collective reflections on issues of social injustice, exclusion, and marginalization of minority groups. After being forced to flee from the southern Cameroon city of Kumba, from where I hail, I have managed to continue my practice and reach out to educate communities, focusing on groups of internally displaced persons, especially women and children. I'm co-founder of the space. It's called the Forest Creative Loft, and also initiator of a networking platform called Women Who Branch in Conversation, a digital and physical platform created to discuss social issues, to uplift and empower the socially disadvantaged, and really we're talking about still internally displaced persons. Now, both existing platforms have been working physically and digitally since 2017 with different groups in the community, especially IDPs and women, and have birthed a participatory audience of over 700 people. So in my interest in learning about the works of sub-Saharan women photographers, I came to know about the most thrilling storytellers, on the continent, bringing to the forefront conversations on dignity, on identity, conflict, and inequality. In a previous paper that I contributed to the archival book of the 12th edition of the Bamako Biennale, entitled My Gaze, I presented the way African female photographers used photography to speak up on social, political, and cultural dominations from their personal perspectives. Now, in my research for African female photographers, I have come across these amazing African female photographers whose interest in conflict has brought forth a different narrative contrary to the one in former media. Now, Joanna Shumali in Savali. Joanna Shumali, she wore the pre-pictet in 2019 for her series Savali. And the series, so Joanna Shumali, after the civil war in her birthplace, it's not the Congo, it's Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, was able to recount through her photography the mental state of the people lost through her series Savali. What's really intriguing about Johanna's perspective, or her way of viewing conflict, and it's that how she relates it to trauma and healing. So she, in the way she wanted to narrate the conflict that happened in 2015 in Grand Bassam, she didn't want to go, and just make it mediatized like former media. She wanted to show the human side of the people that are affected by this conflict. And so she went around the city And 3 weeks after the bombing that killed many people in Grand Bassam, a beach in Cote d'Ivoire, and she took pictures with her phone because she didn't want it to be apparent that she's taking pictures, of people. She wanted to be able to depict the mood in which those people were, And not only did she take these pictures, but she also wanted to give hope, to the people and also to the viewer, and also and to say that they're not identified by what happened to them. And so she does these embroideries on her photographs, beautiful embroideries with flamboyant colors, and there we see, the beautification, of art, its aesthetics, and it's really a way of healing. Photography for African photographers, or for African female photographers like Joanna and also like myself, it's really a tool. It's really a tool of starting conversations on trauma, on how conflict affects a society. We try to draw attention to this by in the way that we present, be it our project or our research on the conflict that affects our communities. Fati Abubakar in Bits of Boner. Fati Abubakar, I'm really fascinated with this woman who studied health and social care and then became a photographer. After her schooling in England, she went back to her hometown, Bono, in Manduguri, and decided to tell the story of her people in a different way in Bits of Bono. So she created an Instagram account where she documents, practically every time the pictures that she takes of the people, the activities that are going on in Borno. For Fati, she wants to show the human side of her people. She's really tired of, obviously, the context is the people of Borno are affected with the Boko Haram crisis. So they're one of the last regions or villages, if you want, that are still suffering from the impact of Boko Haram attacks. And so, yes, the community does live in fear, constant attacks, and killings. But also, she wanted to show that people still live in Manduguri, and that and that she portrayed it through photographs, especially of women and children, and showing how they live, they go to school, and also her ways of even depicting the stories of women that have been affected in one way or the other with the Boko Haram attacks. It's not terrifying. It is important for her to change the narrative of her at the African scene of conflict. It's perceived by formal media. Myself as a visual storyteller, and just like Fati Abubakar and Joada Shomali, I love conceptualizing as well my photography, because for African female photography, it's not always easy to go on the forefront and bring out the stories that you would want to bring out. So at times, most often you have to recreate the scenes that you want to tell to the viewer. And so visual storytelling is something that as an African photographer, I do a lot. And for my photography, I always come from it always springs from my own experience, because I come from the conflict zone in Cameroon, and so when the conflict escalated in 2017, my mother and my nephews and nieces had to flee the village and come and live with me in the city. And for me and Zachary, my partner and husband who's there, it was important for us to narrate, the financial and psychological difficulties that people who received internally displaced people in their homes went through, and not only those people, but the people also as well who moved from their homes to come and live in the cities with other people. We started conceptualizing and taking these pictures when we noticed that some homes had 100 internally displaced persons, some people sleeping on the bare floor and all that, because they were running away from conflict. So we thought that we have to start the conversation, in our communities, that is, basically francophone, because we're in Douala. Historically, Cameroon, it's divided into two. Yet again, a colonial heritage, the French and English, and it's been causing a lot of problems. So it's very important that we kind of try to emancipate the French community about this crisis, because the other communities suffering from this conflict are not even an hour's drive away from Douala, but the Anglophones don't seem concerned by it. So it's important for us to create, photographies recounting stories that would enable them to be kind of interested and have this conversation about what is going on in their neighboring towns. So It Is on North is a series on the Anglophone crisis. In this picture is my mother, displaced by the conflict in Abed region. It was really important for us to take this picture like this, because my mom, she hated being not with us, but she hated being in the city. She had to forgo her home, her friends, her church, her Njangi group, her farms, and it was a big trauma for her. And sometimes we'll meet her dressed up like this in the morning, saying that she is returning back home. Yes, it was, and so we wanted to take a picture like this of her to, have this conversation really about people who were internally displaced. It's a series of 16 photographs. I just put only one here. It's also very full of humor, even though the situation is very serious. The pictures that we took, there's some pictures I didn't put in. I didn't want it to be long, where 7 of us are stood waiting, queuing for the toilet or for the restroom, let's call it that way, because we had just 2 apartments, 2 bedrooms and 1 low, and we had 8 people living there. So it's funny. The depictions of everybody just staying and waiting, it's kind of jam-packed with humor, but at the same time, it's a very serious issue. Art therapy for us, it's a way for us to get close to the communities that are affected. So in our work as photographers, in order to document these stories, and in order especially to get to the background history of this war that's ravaging really the southwest and the northwest region, we need to go to the people that suffer from this conflict. And we ways of doing it for us to carry out what we call photographic research. It's art therapy workshops, and art therapy workshops are mostly workshops where we come up with capacity building programs for women and children. And so here you see women from Bamenda. Bamenda is the stronghold of the conflict. It is where the conflict is really present, and they suffer most. The community they suffer most from the conflict. I don't know if I situated it, but the conflict is really an armed war, an armed war with the state's military and secessionist forces. The people who want, obviously to secede from Cameroon. They want Cameroon to become like before, with the southern Cameroons and French Cameroon. So this workshop was done in August, not last month, where we were able to, train 200 women from the villages around Bamenda. And through this training, we were able to interview them. And the most important thing for these women was for us to get their stories. That's what they told me. They wanted their stories heard. And so we have a series of portraits of these women where we documented them and got their stories. And because it's a research that we're carrying out, we're going to restitute these stories on a website because it's important for us to document these stories as already for us a solution-based process. Because the war that's happening in the Northwest Southwest is something that our government doesn't want to talk about. Just 2 weeks ago in Manfe, one of the regions that's really immersed with this war, more than 35 people were killed, and not a mention from the states of what was happening. So it's a silence war, and the process for us is to unsilence this war, because we feel that when it is talked about and people have conversations about it, then solutions will set in. Also, another way of narrating conflicts as a woman in photography, because at the end as well, the difficulty that you have as a woman in photography, and even just as a photographer, because I don't know if in your community it's the same way, but in where I come from, a camera is considered like a weapon, which is, it is not allowed. You're not allowed to take pictures. You're not, your camera is going to be seized. Even in the city, you always have a cop or somebody come and say, why are you taking pictures? So not to talk of the conflict zone, it's your life in danger. If you take out your camera, you can get shot or locked up for that. So we have to look for other ways to tell those stories. So semi-fictional stories of, of happenings, what we've heard happen. For example, this story about a girl, in order to prompt attention to the dehumanizing activities of conflict and how it has affected women and girls in the rural areas of Tiko and Kumba, I resorted to using semi-fictional photographic stories to recount the heroic transformation of an innocent civilian into a warlord in no mercy. And this is, I say semi-fictional stories because I created new names, but it is a true story of a girl child whose parents were burned and killed in a home, who became a warlord. So she joined the secessionists, and she fought. She fought, and this has, because she was very brave. Her story went from ear to ear, and we got hold of it. So I wanted to talk about this young innocent civilian who was, maybe through vengeance, joined the secessionist forces, and also. But in my recount of how I did not put her as a villain at all. I put her as somebody that would seek a solution to the war, yet a way instilling hope in this crisis. In the process of what we're doing, documenting this crisis, is really wanting dialogue, to set in dialogue that would make it cease. In conclusion, not to be too long, Coloring Sadness is a title I coined for this essay because of the way female photographers use photos to project how they feel about what is happening around them. In their different narratives, it is clear that they are concerned about social justice and change in the community, inviting the viewer to do the same. So it's really inviting the viewer to come and have this conversation with them and repound the war and unsilence the war. There's a lot of heart and sensitivity put in the creative process, almost as if they want to give superpowers to those affected by melancholy. Photography is used by women photographers to heal trauma, but also to show the humanness of the people living in warring situations. African female photographers have a way of bringing untold stories of their communities to the international scenes, thereby silencing the words that are not spoken by mainstream media. They use the art of photography as therapy to help cope with raging trauma. It is quite a quest, as Fatih Abubakar puts it, to make photography be regarded as a profession, most especially a female profession. So thank you very much.